I plop down in front of the TV, I turn it on, Prince Harry's talking shit about me. I'm like, he's like, Joe Rogan's giving out dangerous vaccine misinformation.
I said Meghan Markle is, of course, a lifelong feminist, which she's demonstrated by marrying a prince and giving up her job.
Prince Harry and Meghan, we don't give a f***. America don't give a f*** about you.
A lot of people care, dude.
We don't care about the royal family.
They got a Netflix
show. We never
show.
cared about nothing that had to do with y'all.
Damn, Harry and Meghan are losing their titles? That's the most embarrassing royal loss since William's hairline.
Come on, just shave it, Wills.
Okay, just shut up about the hair.
What hair? Oh, I'm sorry.
And I'm not even mad at Harry. Look, if I was him, I would have said the same shit. I get it. And if I met that dude, I'd love to have a drink with him.
When Joe Rogan stormed the Netflix stage for his new comedy special, he didn't just tell jokes. He detonated a cultural bomb that echoed worldwide. His brutal takedown of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry wasn't some light roast or passing jab. It came across like a raw, unapologetic verdict on their entire public image, delivered under the blinding spotlight of the world's biggest platform. And here's the wild part. While it didn't feel like just another comedian poking fun, Rogan's words hit with the weight of someone who's been holding back receipts, someone with his own history of tension with Prince Harry.
One time, I just woke up, I'm in my underwear, I plop down in front of the TV, I turn it on. The moment I turn it on, Prince Harry's talking shit about me. I'm like,
That personal edge gave his punchlines an extra sting, making it impossible to laugh them off as harmless banter. But it wasn't only Rogan going in. His shots lined up perfectly with a growing chorus of A-list comedians who've all taken swings at the royal couple. It's like the comedy elite smelled weakness and decided to pounce. Together. When multiple heavyweights circle the same target, you know it's more than coincidence. It's a cultural trend. And the reason Meghan and Harry keep getting dragged? Their patterns are obvious, predictable, and practically begging to be mocked. From oversharing interviews to contradictions in their private life crusade, they've created a playbook that comedians can flip through with ease. And Rogan just ripped the cover clean off.
I know some people are disappointed by the name Archie, but there's one person who's super excited, the Queen. Yeah, because you know for the last 9 months, she's been like, please don't be Jamal, please don't be Jamal, please don't be Jamal.
He continued on this theme, comparing Meghan's experience to a famous horror movie about race.
Queen summoned everyone to a private meeting. Everyone attended except Meghan Markle. And I'll be honest, I don't blame Meghan for not going, because nothing good happens when white people invite you to the countryside. We've all seen Get Out. We know how this shit ends.
But here's where things went off the rails. Rogan didn't just play around with lighthearted royal jokes. In one shocking moment, he dove headfirst into territory so dark, so conspiratorial, that even the guests around him froze in silence. Nobody expected it, and the crowd barely knew how to react. It wasn't comedy anymore. It was a revelation that has to be seen to be believed. We'll break that down soon, but first, let's rewind to when this feud actually turned personal. Because believe it or not, it didn't begin on the Netflix stage. It began inside Joe Rogan's own living room. Imagine this, Rogan lounging around in nothing but his underwear, flipping through TV channels, when suddenly, Prince Harry's face fills the screen. And then it happens. The royal, the so-called rebel prince, singles Rogan out by name, calling him dangerous and reckless for spreading misinformation. Rogan was floored. The surreal image of a British royal not only knowing his name but blasting him on television left him stunned. One moment, he was just chilling in his house. The next, he was the target of a global scolding, delivered by a prince no less. The irony was too rich. A man born into centuries of privilege, wagging his finger at a comedian for talking too freely. From that moment on, it wasn't just comedy for Rogan, it was war. Rogan's first reaction to Harry's accusation wasn't anger, and it wasn't defensiveness either. He flipped it into pure comedy. He cracked a self-deprecating joke so sharp that the audience erupted, proving once again that he knows how to turn tension into laughs on command. But then, once the chuckles died down, Rogan shifted gears and got serious. That's when he dropped what's now considered his famous defense, a line that's been replayed countless times online. "Is that really my fault?" he asked, cutting straight to the core of the debate. And he wasn't done. He doubled down, throwing out one simple, almost obvious piece of advice that completely shredded Prince Harry's entire argument in seconds. People have to take responsibility for what they choose to believe. With that, Rogan didn't just defend himself, he reframed the entire conversation.
You've got to understand, Meghan was everything people didn't want in the royal family. She's black, she's from the middle class, she's a divorcee, and worst of all, she said the American version of The Office is way better.
Suddenly, the issue wasn't misinformation at all. It was about personal accountability, freedom of thought, and the audacity of royals acting like they know what people should or shouldn't hear. It was a knockout moment that left Harry's criticism looking flimsy and overblown. But here's the kicker. Rogan wasn't the only one bold enough to call them out. His raw, unfiltered shots at the Sussexes were just the beginning, because other A-list comedians were lining up to take their turn at the royal piñata. It wasn't long before the rest of the comedy elite smelled blood in the water, and they went straight for Meghan and Harry. Leading the charge was Trevor Noah, the razor-tongued host of The Daily Show, who wasted no time digging into the royal family's deepest fears.
Prince Harry really did that. At a movie premiere last year, he asked the CEO of Disney to hook his wife up with voiceovers.
His punchlines weren't just jokes. They were cultural commentary dressed up as comedy, and they cut deep. Noah dared to compare Meghan's royal struggles to the plot of a famous horror film about race, a jaw-dropping move that turned the entire conversation upside down. He laid out all the reasons the establishment was hostile toward Meghan, but then dropped the mic with what he called her ultimate crime, and the audience howled at the idea that this, of all things, was what the royals couldn't forgive. But his sharpest knife was reserved for Prince Harry. Noah painted him as a disgraced monarch stripped of power, reduced to hustling for scraps in Hollywood. His most biting punchline?
Now, I was curious what they did with Harry and Meghan's wax figures, so I found the museum employee who's temporarily storing them.
Harry awkwardly begging Disney's CEO to give Meghan a voiceover job. A moment Noah described with such perfect cringe that the crowd couldn't stop laughing. It was brutal, and it left Harry looking desperate, out of place, and powerless. While Noah focused on politics and race, other hosts took a different route. Conan O'Brien, master of the surreal, decided to poke fun at the bizarre aftermath of Madame Tussauds in London, removing the Sussexes' wax figures. Instead of letting it go, Conan built an entire comedy bit, imagining where those wax dolls ended up, and the results were both hilarious and humiliating. By then, it was clear, Meghan and Harry weren't just a trending topic, they were becoming a comedy punching bag for the entire late-night circuit. Conan's segment went even further off the rails when he introduced a so-called museum employee who seemed disturbingly obsessed with the Sussex wax figures. The character's creepy, almost unhinged attachment had the audience howling one second and squirming the next. It was the perfect mix of cringe and comedy, the kind of punchline that makes you laugh while questioning if you should. And in that moment,
Oliver, you have generously offered to keep the wax figures of Harry and Meghan safe.
Yeah, that's correct. And if I may, I would just like to say that I'm definitely not using the wax figures for sex stuff.
the verdict was sealed. Meghan and Harry's entire public life had officially become fair game for every comic with a mic. Late-night TV, which once played it safe, now treated the royal couple like an open target, roasting every detail of their downfall. But while the big names on TV were sharp, Joe Rogan was preparing to cross into territory even darker than anything they dared touch.
They are in a loving home, and I treat them better than the museum ever did. They didn't appreciate Meghan's soft hands or Harry's supple lips.
And trust me, we'll get there soon. Before that, we've got to zoom out to the raw, unfiltered comedy world. Away from network restrictions, podcasters and stand-up comics didn't play by Hollywood's rules, and that freedom hit the Sussexes even harder. At the front of that pack was Andrew Schultz, the New York firebrand who has no filter and zero patience for royal drama.
Prince Harry and Meghan, we don't give a f***. America don't give a f*** about you.
A lot of people care, dude.
We don't care about the royal family.
They got a Netflix
We never
show.
cared about nothing that had to do with you.
Schultz's core message was as blunt as it gets. Americans just don't care. He mocked the couple's constant need for attention, exposed their obsession with luxury, and ridiculed their Montecito mansion lifestyle like it was the punchline to a running gag. The way he framed it, Meghan and Harry weren't tragic figures or brave rebels. They were just entitled outsiders burning cash while begging for sympathy. While Andrew Schultz blasted Meghan and Harry for invading American culture, other comedians decided to go straight for Meghan herself. And that's where things got savage. Tim Dillon, never one to hold back, unleashed one of the most brutal and controversial lines of the entire comedy war. A takedown so raw that even his own fans were split between laughing and gasping. Meanwhile, across the pond, Britain's Jimmy Carr sharpened his wit into a dagger aimed at Meghan's so-called feminism. With a single brutal one-liner, he mocked her activist claims in a way that left the audience howling, and Meghan's image wobbling under the weight of hypocrisy. Then came Simon Brodkin, the master prankster, who admitted he could barely stomach watching Harry and Meghan's Netflix series. He tore into the docuseries with a sarcastic blow-by-blow recap, mocking its self-importance and groaning at Harry's bizarre, cringe-worthy descriptions of his life. The language Harry used, trying to sound profound, only made him look out of touch, and Brodkin milked it for every laugh. And like so many others, he didn't miss the glaring irony. Two multimillionaires crying about security and hardship while filming from their palatial mansion. The spectacle disgusted him, and his crowd roared in agreement. Finally, he went where few dared, voicing the taboo thought that many had whispered, but few had ever said out loud. questioning the very foundation of Harry and Meghan's relationship itself. This wasn't polished, sanitized late-night banter. It was raw, angry, and unfiltered stand-up fury. But the storm didn't stay confined to comedy clubs and podcasts. Soon, the ridicule bled into the beating heart of pop culture itself.
Keep your shows, keep your drama, keep all that nonsense. That's for you British people to fake care about. We do not give a We don't care.
When Saturday Night Live turns your private life into a recurring sketch, you've officially been locked inside what some call the pop culture prison, a place where every move you make is mocked on repeat, forever. When the comedy world set its sights on Meghan, one of the juiciest targets became her old acting career, especially her role on Suits. Saturday Night Live and other shows never missed a chance to mock it, constantly framing the series as irrelevant and unpopular. One of the sharpest burns? Joking that Suits was so painfully dull, it could be repackaged as a sleep aid. The audience roared, and Meghan's Hollywood past suddenly looked more like a punchline than a resume. But the ridicule didn't stop at network television. The cultural drag had spread so far that online creators joined in, parodying Meghan's own Netflix series archetypes with a spoof called Love Meghan. In one episode, actress Mindy Kaling twisted the knife by accidentally calling her Meghan Markle over and over, only for Meghan to awkwardly correct her that she's a duchess now. The parody nailed her reputation for name-dropping celebrities, often the ones who may not even be real friends. And then came the most cringe-worthy skit of all. They mocked the bizarre scene from Love Meghan where she tried to pass off store-bought pretzels as homemade, simply by stuffing them into bags with her custom labels slapped on. It was comedy gold, a perfect metaphor for how many see Meghan. Polished packaging, questionable substance. But the ultimate humiliation is when cartoons turn you into a running gag. Family Guy dragged the Sussexes as lazy caricatures, painting them as the shorthand for getting paid for doing nothing.
Like, they moved to Montecito, like this is the fancy part of Santa Barbara, right? And they were like renting out the restaurants and being like, it just needs to be just us when we go out to eat here. Y'all are broke. Y'all got no money.
They even poked fun at their endless stream of random sponsored posts for products they had no real connection to, making the couple look less like global change makers and more like influencers hustling for quick cash. Across the pond, Britain's legendary puppet show Spitting Image didn't hold back either. It went straight for the jugular. The satirical skit tore into Meghan and Harry's obsession with privacy, mocking them as a couple who fled the UK only to brag about their quiet life in California, while conveniently living next door to Oprah. The puppets drove the joke home with a sarcastic, "We're just a normal couple, far from the paparazzi." Woo, But not too far. The audience roared because it perfectly captured the hypocrisy. Even worse for Harry, the show portrayed him as a powerless sidekick, still chained to his royal upbringing. Every time he tried to act free from Granny's rules, Meghan swooped in and shut him down, portrayed as the one firmly holding the reins. It was savage, and it made Harry look less like a rebel prince and more like a man under strict management. From SNL's cutting sketches to YouTube parodies, cartoon puppets, and even animated roasts, Meghan and Harry were no longer just tabloid fodder.
If you came up with the picture of an annoying, insufferable white woman, it would be Meghan Markle, even though she's not white.
They were now a permanent running gag baked into global pop culture. Their every move, every word, had become raw material for comedy. But here's the twist. All of that was just the opening act. Because the most explosive, eyebrow-raising speculation we promised from the start wasn't coming from a sketch show or a cartoon. It came straight out of Joe Rogan's mouth. What Rogan put on the table wasn't just another joke. It was a staggering accusation, and this wasn't whispered in the shadows of a gossip tabloid that people could easily shrug off. No, this was broadcast on the world's biggest podcast, a platform that millions trust more than any polished news network. That's why it hit so hard, because it felt real. Now, let's be crystal clear. Nobody here is saying this is 100% proven. But the alleged photos that keep resurfacing online, said to be from Meghan's so-called yacht days, are impossible to ignore. These images, which claim to show her around powerful and influential men, circulate constantly in the corners of the internet.
I said Meghan Markle is, of course, a lifelong feminist, which she's demonstrated by marrying a prince and giving up her job.
And yet, mainstream outlets won't go near the story, which begs the obvious question: why? Is it just about legal protection? Or, as many speculate, is it because the whispers risk dragging in far too many untouchable figures from both Hollywood and London? That possibility alone keeps the theory alive. It feeds into a long-standing belief that climbing to the top of the entertainment world often comes with hidden compromises, and that Meghan may have played that same controversial game. This counter-narrative stands in sharp contrast to the fairy tale she's carefully promoted: the empowered Duchess, the global humanitarian, the brand builder. But once public trust cracks, especially after interviews filled with contradictions, it leaves a dangerous vacuum. And in today's culture, that vacuum doesn't stay empty for long. It gets filled with the darkest, most scandalous theories the internet can conjure. And once they spread, they're almost impossible to erase. In the end, this kind of explosive speculation only becomes possible when a public narrative has shattered so completely that people are willing to believe anything. And with just one jaw-dropping comment, Joe Rogan said the quiet part out loud, the thing everyone whispered but no one with power dared to voice. So what's the real takeaway here? Rogan's performance wasn't just another round of comedy banter. His final speculation landed like a wrecking ball, a last brutal strike against a narrative that the public had already stopped buying. Once upon a time, a celebrity could ride out the storm with a well-rehearsed PR tour, a friendly magazine cover, or a teary sit-down interview, but not anymore.
Wasn't there some speculation that she was on Epstein's yacht at one point in time? There was like photos with her and Prince Andrew way back in the day when she was like in her early 20s.
Wow. No, I haven't heard that one. No.
This saga has become a cautionary tale for the new media age. It proves that the glossy, curated image crafted by traditional outlets can't survive when it collides with the raw and unfiltered power of the world's biggest podcast. That authenticity, or at least the feeling of it, is now stronger than any palace-approved press release. Because here's the harsh truth. Once the audience decides your story feels fake, you lose control forever. The biggest voices won't just call you out, they'll make sure the fallout is devastating and permanent. The proof? Endless mockery from Chris Rock, Trevor Noah, Jimmy Carr, Andrew Schultz, and finally Joe Rogan himself, who didn't just crack jokes, but left Meghan and Harry's carefully built narrative in ruins with one shocking accusation that may haunt them for years. All of this, the jokes, the sketches, the parodies, they're not the cause of Meghan and Harry's downfall, they're the symptom. The sound of laughter is really the sound of an audience that no longer believes a single word of their carefully crafted story. And once that trust cracks, the door swings wide open for something far darker. Because what comes next isn't comedy, it's speculation, it's rumor, it's conspiracy. It's the digital wildfire that spreads faster than any PR team can contain. When people become so distrustful, so convinced that your image is fake, they'll believe almost anything about you. No matter how extreme, no matter how unproven, that's the brutal reality of this new media age. Which leads us to the unavoidable question. After being shredded by the world's biggest comedians and dragged into the darkest corners of online speculation, is there any way back? How do you recover when the conversation about you has left the safe world of jokes and entered the shadow world of permanent online conspiracy? Because once those narratives attach to your name, they don't go away. They live in every search result, every headline, every whisper. So is recovery even possible? Or are Meghan and Harry trapped in a new kind of public exile? One that's permanent, digital, and merciless? Subscribe to our channel and let us know your thoughts in the comments below.